18-10 it was, scoreline, damn close game. Jason Paris, CEO of One New Zealand, joins us. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Martin.
Look, I've just read some of those comments. Do you stand by what you tweeted out?
Yeah, look, I don't think that the NRL refs are cheats. I was an emotional fan in the moment. However, I do stand by my comments that there's bias against the Warriors. So, the refs definitely come out and do the best they can do. But, when these bunker decisions are being made based on high definition, slow motion video footage, all we can ask for is consistency, and I don't think the Warriors are getting that.
So when you say that there's bias against the Warriors, go further into that and explain. What do you think that's from? Do you think that's deep-seated prejudice? Do you think it's an attitude that the referees take onto the field? Do you think it's an NRL attitude? What is it?
I'm baffled, actually. Look, I think the NRL's done a brilliant job of creating a fantastic spectacle, and as part of that, they've got very clear rules around what is and isn't allowed on the field. And shoulder to head, for an example, in a tackle, it's pretty clear cut, so but it doesn't seem to be the way it's against us. So we've had, the last two games, we've had footage being referred to the bunker that demonstrates our players have been tackled illegally, and yet it's play on. The opposite seems to be true at times as well, where, I thought both the sin bins on the weekend were marginal calls, haven't been referred to the judiciary, and that may be because they felt the sin binning was enough. But I struggle with it, and it's the players haven't been putting on a perfect performance. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's the difference between winning or losing, but it certainly contributes to it. You're a fan, Martin, and you know how important momentum is in the game of rugby league. And unfortunately, when these calls go against us, we lose it.
You also said, Jason, this is Jason Paris with us, if you go back 3 weeks or 3 years, there's consistently inconsistent decisions against us. I've been having a good think about that because I also believe that to be true, and I don't necessarily think there's a conspiracy, so I agree with you on that as well. But I don't know whether it's just ingrained prejudice. Look, I mean, people in this country don't realise that when Australians grow up, that, they kind of look down on us. I mean, it's just one of those things that they do. They don't really rate us very highly. And I just wonder whether it's also connected to the fact if your team's a great team and it's performing well year after year, in a lot of sports you tend to get those decisions go with the best players and the best teams. Do you think it's got anything to do with that?
I think it's got a lot to do with that, actually. I think that's a good call. I think success breeds success. And from the response to my kind of unwanted media off the back of that, to be honest, I'm glad the conversation's happening. But, you've had a lot of fans from different teams, the Raiders and the Bulldogs and the Tigers come out and say they feel the same way. So, there could be something in it. My point is, take the belief, my belief, everyone's belief out of it, and use the actual footage, use data, and look at like-for-like instances of decisions that are being made in the games, in Warriors games and in non-Warriors games, and see if they are consistent. And my view, from being a 20-year tragic, is that they're not. And we don't get a fair suck of the sad, as we would put it.
Jason Paris, you just happen to not just be any 20-year-old Warriors tragic, though, because you are also the CEO of the club's major sponsor. Now, if this was any old fan on Twitter, and I know that when you're on Twitter and you're watching the game, you feel like you're any old fan, but of course, you also do realise that you're not just any old fan, and because of who you are and the position that you have, the NRL chief executive, Andrew Abdos, actually felt that he's got to step in. Have you been contacted by them at all, or are you just reading the comments that he's made like the rest of us through the press?
No, I haven't had any conversation with the NRL, about it. And look, I get it. I'm one of the biggest fans, but I'm, also the CEO of their major sponsor. And so I'm probably extra specially wedded to the success of the team, so we want the team to be successful because it means our partnership is more successful. That had nothing to do with my comments, by the way. It was response to, one of the fans saying he thought it was outrageous, and so do I. But as I said before, refs turn up every day to do their best job. They're definitely not turning up to cheat, and it's not. That was a heat of the moment comment, but I do think that there is clear bias against the Warriors, and I absolutely stand by that. And I think if I think there should be an inquiry into it in some form, but it should be based on video footage. You've had a number of fans say that we think there's something here. Maybe the NRL think that there isn't. Use the data and to put it to bed once and for all. That's all I'm asking.
Jason Paris, CEO of One New Zealand, who were Vodafone and have rebranded over at Christmas. You know that, people. Are you going to be sent to the naughty chair because of this? And will it also mean that you temper your comments? Is that what you're expecting, or do you think that this is just going to blow over?
Well, I hope that there's a conversation around bias and that it makes the game better. So I think that the moves that have made to speed the game up, the rules they've tested, it's a fantastic game because of the decisions that they have made. At the same time, man, there's a lot of conversation, isn't there, around refereeing decisions or bunker referrals, and a bunker probably has a great place as long as it's just consistent, and that's my point. So I haven't had a conversation with the NRL, but I'd be happy to clearly convey that that's really my message. Use the data, use the facts to clear any of these views up once and for all.
You've also lifted a rock that nobody's actually looked under before, because this particular rock, nobody knows what power that the NRL have in terms of if they wanted to sanction a sponsor or if they want to temper a sponsor's comments, because as you say, you're just a fan like everyone else.
Yeah, well, and I'm a 20-year fan and we're a 20-year sponsor, and the NRL has always been very supportive of club sponsors, and I don't think that will change. Will they be annoyed? Yes. Will it spur a conversation around consistency? I think it will. And as I said, I don't think the refs are cheats. That was a heat in the moment comment, but I do think that there's a bias here against the Warriors that needs to be looked into. And if this means that it does, I think that'll be a good thing for the game and a good thing for the Warriors.
Finally, and thank you so much for your time, mate, because I know you'll be inundated with people wanting to talk to you. How does it reflect on the club? Is that a concern of yours? Because if you watched Andrew Webster in the press conference afterwards, you could tell he wanted to say something, but he actually turned to all the journalists who were there and said, look, if you fellas all hand the hat round, pay my fine, I'm prepared to give you the answer that you want, but I can't. So will you be talking to the club at all in the next few days?
Look, the club is focusing on the right areas, which is to what they can control on the field. And so I think, Cameron George and Andrew Webster are doing the right thing. So control what you can control. You can't change last week's refereeing decision or the last 3 years refereeing decisions. As a fan, though, we can flag and say, hold a minute, I think that it is inconsistent. And it is putting our team at a disadvantage, and that's not fair. And let's unpack why it's happening, because I think it's a fact, and sort it out, and then move on. So, look, I'm not speaking for the club. I'm not speaking for One New Zealand. I'm speaking for Jason Paris, the fan. But clearly I represent both because we're a sponsor, and I'm the CEO. But I'm a fan first. Fan of the NRL, fan of the Warriors, and I just want it to be a great game. And I hope that this conversation, which clearly has unlocked a lot of feeling and support, will lead to a better outcome and a better game for everyone.
Just had a text come in. Finally, the rest of us New Zealand Warriors fans have a frontline voice. So you're getting a lot of support from the trenches, mate. Jason, I appreciate your time, mate. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Martin.
All right, Jason Paris with us, who is the CEO of what was Vodafone, is now One New Zealand, and very forthright in what he expressed over the weekend on Twitter.
Devlin.
Oh, how does he do that? How does he do that?
The platform.
Okay, Brad, the big burning question here has got to be about the Warriors. Do the Warriors get a bad rub of the green from the referees?
Yeah, look, no, I don't believe they do. I think, there's no doubt they get some tough calls on occasions, but so do a lot of other teams. They were playing the Premiers on Saturday night. Penrith, who've been in the last 3 grand finals, and they're a team that no matter how well they're playing or not playing, they just know how to win. They've got so many good players, and Penrith just ground that win out. But I thought it was a really admirable performance by the Warriors. They had some tough calls, but they need to be better and they need to overcome those. And I would think that the coaching staff and the players themselves would be pretty happy with their performance and the way they went against the Penrith Panthers. They basically showed that they're capable of matching it with them, capable of beating them on their day. But, they're probably 1 or 2% short of that, or they were 1 or 2% short of that on Saturday.
You could also add in the Roosters there in the Storm. The last 3 games have been really tough, and I don't know how many teams in the NRL would go through a schedule like that, Storms, Roosters, Panthers, and win all of those games. They've hung tough, they've toe-to-toe. But is it more just a reflection of where the team is? I always say the table doesn't lie, Brad. They've won 5, they've lost 5. Is that fair where the Warriors are right now?
Look, they're probably a bit better than that. Well, you know what I mean? On watching the way they've played, the opposition that they've played, and as you said, they've hung tight in those games. Probably the last decade, the Storm, the Roosters, and the Panthers have been the 3 most dominant teams, and they're teams that we all expect that'll be there when it matters. And they've absolutely taken the game to those 3 clubs. Or they've put in good performances against those 3 clubs. So I think that's something to be heartened about. Hopefully, they will have. There's no easy games in the NRL, but hopefully, some of the games that they've got coming up ahead, maybe the schedule won't be as tough, and maybe they'll be able to take a lot out of their performances. Obviously, it's going to be a key what happens now, because they probably deserve to be better than 50-50 on the table, but it's really up to them how they respond going forward. They could be buoyed by their performances, have learnt a lot from their performances, and go on and win some tight games and some tough games are coming up, or they could fall away in the latter half of the comp. So that's probably the test for the Warriors. Look, I would say all the signs are good at the moment. They're positive, and that they should be expecting that they will finish the season at better than 50-50. And I suppose the other thing is, usually if you are 50-50, you do make the top 8. So that's something to be positive about as well.
Brad Walter, NRL.com with us. The Broncos top the table. They're on 16 points. They've had 8 wins out of 10. There's a real log jam between 3rd and 9th. Every team is on 12 points. So a couple of questions here. Are the Broncos the best team in the comp from what you've observed so far this season, given that they are top of the table? And also, is this the most even comp that you've seen in a long time, given the fact that so many teams are separated just by 1 win?
The second question, I think definitely it's the most even comp for a long time, and it's not just that either team can win on their day, but most games, the majority of games are pretty tight, and they're only one at the death. It's in the dying stages, and I can't remember a competition that was as competitive across the board, and also game by game and week by week. Probably in my memory, I can't think of a competition that was as good as this one currently is. And the Broncos, they're one of the better teams. They're definitely one of the top teams. The way they bounced back and performed against Manly was really impressive on the weekend. I thought maybe the wheels, they were getting a little bit wobbly. It probably shows the importance of Payne Haas that he makes for that team. He missed the previous weekend's game when they were beaten by the Rabbitohs. And the Rabbitohs, I think they're the other team that probably rival. In my mind at the moment, they're the team that rivals the Broncos. They're the big, the main contender to the Broncos. But look, there's a lot of other great teams in this competition. But I'd say they're in my mind, they're probably the top 2 at the moment.
What do you make of the Dolphins, mate? I mean, there they are, Wayne Bennett's side. I want to talk about him in his 900th game in charge. They're fifth. They absolutely demolished the Sharks, and they seem capable of these kind of performances, don't they? Where are they going to finish the season, do you think?
Yeah, hard to say. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be close to the 8, I would think, just given what we've seen. I'm glad you mentioned Wayne Bennett in that 900th game because it's an amazing achievement. And I did I spoke to a lot of people last week about Wayne Bennett for a series of articles that we wrote on. I suppose what makes him such a great coach and all the different sides to him. And I think the one thing that I took away from that is that he just keeps things really simple. He hasn't changed his philosophies about the game or his the way that he views the game or the way he treats the players. His approach to the game, he hasn't really changed that. In the 35 seasons that he's been coaching. He's knows the formula for success, but he just knows how to get players to play their best, to do their best for the team, do the best for him, guys to play above their level. And that's what we saw the other night. Like, it was such a typical Wayne Bennett coach team. They went into that game, Jesse Bromwich out, Sean O'Sullivan. So the captain's out, their halfback Sean O'Sullivan's out, a number of other players are out. Ewan Aitken gets injured at half-time. As well. But everyone stepped up. Cody Nikorima had his best game of the year, playing at 5'8". Young Isaiah Katoa is an absolute revelation. Anthony Milford came off the bench and really contributed to that game. He's just getting the best out of what he's got. And they, I think we heard the instructions that he gave the team were basically. Run hard, hang on to the ball, and have fun. And that's exactly what they did. It's how they played, and they just look like they're enjoying themselves. And I think it's a remarkable feat of coaching. I don't know if any other coach could do it, given that the start of the season, people looked at their roster and thought, there's no marquee player, there's no superstar player. But he's just developed a team that work hard for each other. And as I said, if someone's out, someone else will step in and do the role. They look like they're just really enjoying themselves, and that's sort of, I said, that's typical of a Wayne Bennett coach team. And with that in mind, I think he's only missed the finals, less than a handful of times in his career. And I'd say that, if I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be thinking, yep, we can make the top 8, which is a pretty phenomenal achievement given what people were saying before a ball had been kicked this season.